Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gary Flower, and I've been given the privilege and honour of welcoming you all to the 2012 Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show. Now, we're going to kick off with this fine group of gentlemen who are going to talk to you about buying and acquiring any kind of coin-op game for your home and for your collection. I'm going to hand over the mic now to Dave Oakart. There you go, Dave.
Thanks, Gary. Interesting crowd. You all don't have to sit that far back. We've all showered today, most of us anyways.
This isn't church.
What?
No. This is the church of the game.
Okay. Where'd that come from? That's special. All right. Yeah. Okay, I'm Dave Oakert. Dokert to most of you folks. Doc to some of you folks. I'm retired Navy. I've been collecting, restoring, and repairing video games and arcade machines, pinball games since 1987. What we've assembled is a group of the Seattle Metro arcade collectors, and we're going to try and answer any questions you might have about buying video games or pinball machines. eBay is not the answer. Let's just start with that. And we'll go ahead and get everybody's introduction in.
Hi, I'm David Shoemaker. I've got a bottle that's about to fall off. Roughly 13 pins and 175 uprights and half a dozen miscellaneous. It's not all about pinball and video. There's a space capsule out there. It's a kiddie ride. You put a dime in, it does this for 2.5 minutes. But it was cool for my kids. Over there. It can be more than just those.
Hello, my name is Brian Cady. I'm down to 11 PIDs and 6 or 7 vids, so yeah, amateur by this guy's status, but still, as you start collecting things, they do kind of suddenly you realize that, gee, I've got a lot more than I ever thought I would. So, anyways, I've been involved with the show here since it started off at the Seattle Center, and just really enjoy the fact that we've got everybody's private collections coming in and making a good event that is getting so many people to come out and have fun.
Hi, I'm Seth Payment. My day job is taking the cash and fixing the trash. I got about 35 not pins, pins are evil, videos that are all uprights. I got in the collection because I like to regress when I sit there and play my games, and for some of us, that's what we did when we were younger, me in particular. Yeah, that's about all I know.
Cute, Seth. Matthew Sell, one of the original members of the Seattle Metro Arcade Collectors. I have about 50 upright cabinets and 2 evil pinballs, and been collecting since '96, and involved with the show for 4 years.
We got Link. Hi, I'm Richard Godwin. My collection consists of about 45 to 50, I kind of lost count, machines, combination of pinball, video games, and old electromechanical arcade machines. I got into collecting about 6 years ago, and most of my machines are at my house. A few are at friends' places, and a few are, well, it happens, you know. And a few are even out en route to play out for the public. So you want this back, Dave, or you got some topics?
Anything? So who'd like to go first? Who's got the best? Give it up. What you got?
I'm going to buy my first pinball.
Okay. You're going to buy your first pinball. Yeah. What are you looking for?
I'm going to interject for just a second. For the video chat, this is being broadcast on our web chat, so they don't get anything unless you talk into a mic.
Okay. Sorry.
Hi, my name's James. I'm going to buy my first pinball machine. What should I be looking for, and what should I be avoiding?
Let me help out this question a little bit, and then we'll throw it to the panel. And the question is do you like the old ones that ding and dong and chime, or are you looking for something newer that has sound like AC/DC, where it plays "Let It Be Rock"? And
No, I'm looking for like a early to mid 70s, maybe late 70s. The old counter and full flipper and good back glass and just fun game to play.
So you're looking for an electromechanical is what you're
Yes.
looking for, an EM. Who wants to field it?
I never touched an EM. So.
When looking at pins from that vintage, that's actually a really good vintage to look at because that's probably the lowest price range of games that are out there in most cases. There's a few select games that are higher priced like Kiss because of the nostalgia of the band and such. But for that, the good news is that, like I say, you can find one of those much more affordably than some of the 90s pins. Even some of the 60s wedge heads like what we have out there are a little more expensive than those. And there's some great games because, as we've seen in this show, a compelling game is a compelling game, regardless of what time frame it's from. The biggest challenge you're going to have is finding one where the back glass is still in good shape. There are some aftermarket ones, remanufactured ones and such. Also for this, do you like to tinker with things? Do you like to work on things?
No, I'm not very good at that.
Okay, in that case.
Well, it was going to be as much as a piece of art as it was going to be, something to play.
What I would recommend in that case is if you look at some of the really late, like 79, but early 80s pins, you get a lot of the similar art, a lot of the same look and feel, but it's more circuit. It's more, you start getting to circuit boards and you start getting to the point where there's a little bit, as long as the board is working, there's a little bit less to work on. But the reality is if you have any of the older ones, it takes definitely more tinkering. The newer it gets, typically, as long with few exceptions, it gets a little more reliable in each phase of the phases. So what I would recommend in with what you're looking at is looking for one of the newer 80s, maybe early 90s games that looks really retro and that you like the art with, but the one that's working well, and if you get it chopped out and such, it will last well, and it'll probably be something you can actually really have fun with. Whereas if you get one of the older ones and you start having any problems with it, it might be more challenging. Now, that's just my opinion.
If you don't like to tinker, you're going to be very friendly with somebody like me or Doc. We do service. And we're willing to do that for you.
I am employed, so yes, I can pay you for your time.
Good, because I got a daughter that's need braces one day. So, like I said, I've never done an EM. I've just never had an opportunity. I've got one that I picked up parts of to just understand, and like, oh my God, they are clockwork, literally, in so many ways, and they're going to be twitchy. They're going to be very touchy. But if that's what you like, then definitely that's what you should get. Because if you don't enjoy it, you got no reason getting it.
Yeah, I was looking for like the games that I played when I was a kid, just ones that really inspired awe when I was young, and so it's yeah, I know. I have a one-bedroom apartment, so I don't think I'm gonna get a whole lot of them in there.
Video games and pinball machines are kind of like tattoos. It only starts with one, okay, and then more, and they continue to grow. It's like Brian has said, he's down to. What, 11 and 7?
I refer them to being made out of black hole material. They consume all time, space, and money.
The machines that I see out there for sale and they're being played, those are a good choice to maybe look at?
The machines that are here at the show that are for sale, there's a large group that are for sale in the Rainier Room. The owner is JP, that's what he goes by. I can't pronounce his last name. It's like Polzer or something to that effect. All of his are reworked by him, and they're in very, very nice condition. That would be a perfect machine for someone who does not like to tinker. An electromechanical, you have to compare it to an old car, because the more it plays, the more chance it's going to break. And it needs little TLC here and there. You need to change a belt or a spur gear or...
To add to that, not only, just like an old car, you need to start it pretty regularly in order to maintain it. Those EMs are the same way. If they sit for a long time and then you go to start it up and play it, you're going to have a lot of problems. But if you turn it on, you play it a few games every week or so, it tends to maintain it a lot better. One of the one of the things about the switches in those old machines, they called them leaf switches, and they had two contacts that literally rub across each other, and they're designed to rub across each other for cleaning purposes. It knocks that oxidation off. If they sit and don't get played, that oxidation builds up, they lose contact, and suddenly your switches aren't working. Then you got to call somebody out, and then that person's probably going to want to adjust them, and they're going to come up with a bunch of other things that are going to add up the hours and therefore the cost.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen.
Okay, who else has got a question for us? Mike Lorraine? Oh no!
All right.
We have no idea how video works.
As you all know, this is being webcast, and we actually have a person watching out there that has a question.
Outstanding, bring it.
So, his question is, in your opinion, has the cost of buying a pinball machine or arcade machine gone up recently? Do you recommend people buy a machine now or wait a while for prices to go down? And what time of the year is the best time to buy a machine for a good price?
Wow. That's actually a two-part question because the video community is separate from the pinball community price-wise. Who wants it? There you go.
Pinball up in general. Some things stupidly up. There we go. Medieval madness. It's kind of insane. I don't have one. I want one. I'm not paying 15 grand for one. No frickin' way. Video depends. Some of it's up a little. Some of it's down a little. A Miss Pac-Man 5 years ago would have been an easy grand. Now it's not unreasonable to get one for 400, depending condition and so on. They made a lot of those, so there's a lot out there. Best time of year, I've never really found a best time of year. Some people need money for Christmas, so they'll sell something. Or they'll need, they want to buy something for Father's Day, so there'll be a little spike. But there's not a regular market of any consistency that I've seen.
I'll add on to that. For pins, they're typically November, early December because of Christmas. Pins do go up a little bit, a percentage, and then in January, like February, if you get one like late January, early February, usually they drop back off a little bit, and it's also, if you're going to look at a game, there's a couple of collector communities in the group. There's the Seattle Metro Arcade Collectors, which all of us are part of that. There's also the WPC, the Washington Pinball Crazies, is a group where it's a really active group in this area. So when you find a machine, people are more likely to give you more information, be more honest than like an eBay sale or something like that. And you also get to learn things like in our group, around tax time, there's one local collector who has a lot of games, and we refer to it as Jerry's tax sale. Because every tax season, he sells a couple of machines, but he picks up more during the year. So yes, there are certain, when you know your community, there are certain things that are a little bit more predictable as well. And as the economy picks up, yeah, they'll probably start going up in price.
There has been a drop. Yes, like Matt was saying, there has been a drop in the video pricing, and a lot of it has to do with the economy. If the economy's short and everybody's moving into 1-2 bedroom apartments and condensing down, if they had 5 or 10 video games or pinball machines, well, they just don't have room for them, and they don't want to pay the storage on them. That's not everybody like David has 7 Connex boxes.
It's only 6. I moved, so little background. I got thrown out of my second apartment because of my arcade collection. It was a townhouse with a 2-car garage. They said, you have to park in your garage. I said, no, I've got things in my garage. They said, you have to park in your garage. I said, no. They said, your lease is up, get out. So I bought a house and had 1 truck full of me and 1 truck full of games. And then I kind of started to get a little crazy, and I had 4,000 square feet of storage that I was paying for every month. And then I bought 9 acres and put 6 Connex boxes on it instead of the storage. Yeah, in general, most people aren't quite as nuts as I am. And my wife, I love her. She doesn't shoot me. Oh, good. Yes. Well, one rule. If you have a spouse, 1 for you, 10 for me. Adjust by whatever you need to, but.
And I'm going to add one thing onto that. If you have a spouse who's willing to tolerate this, if they have a game that they really love, don't trade that one. Don't sell that one as a trade. Just FYI, I have not done that, but I've seen friends do that to, I see Dave's hiding over there. So yes, if your spouse really, really likes a specific game, if there are certain games that my wife likes that I don't care what happens, those don't go anywhere.
The first game I ever bought was a Gyrus. It was a gift from my girlfriend, who is now my wife. So I can blame her. She started it. Doesn't fly.
You want to add to it, Matt? We've definitely all made that mistake in one way, shape, or form. At least some of us have, anyways. Who's got something else they would like to ask about? What you got?
You said eBay wasn't the answer. What is the answer to find a good source for games? Pinball games. I don't mean to insult the arcade guys.
Anything but eBay.
No, I don't agree. I've bought quite a lot of stuff off eBay. Know what you're willing to spend for something. eBay in general, you can pay too much for anything, be it a Hot Wheel car or a Quantum. Know what you're willing to spend. Know what a reasonable price is. Ask around before you buy. Maybe somebody local has it. Watch Craigslist. Now, there's a couple of guys here that are hawks. I haven't been able to get anything off of Craigslist in a year because a couple of these guys. Yeah, if you are going to watch Craigslist, have money on hand and have your truck ready with fuel. If you be prepared. If you do go on Craigslist, you probably aren't going to get screwed if you actually get there and see the machine, but you may get halfway there and the guy sells it. It's a coin toss. I've had good luck. I've never been boned. I've bought, like I said, I bought a lot of stuff off eBay. Just know your price. Know what you are willing to spend.
Another place is a good place to look is auctions and like home estate sales and whatnot. There are a lot of people who have these things laying in their basement where they had a grandfather or a person who owned some sort of facility that they had it in, and you will oftentimes find those there, especially the odd ones, which not a lot of people played.
All right. In my opinion, the best place to find a game is in the local collector communities. These guys have games. They know what they're doing with their games. They can tell you what the problems with the games are, if there are any. Also, you can ask other people in the community and find out whether that guy is reputable or not. That way you know what you're getting, and you're more than likely going to get it at a reasonable rate. Okay, that's where I would suggest buying games, especially your first game. Another thing that you might want to do before you buy a game, if you want to maintain the game yourself, is our SMAC group has what we call repair parties. We tend to do them about once a month. It's very informal at someone's house. Someone opens up their house. We bring in parts. We work on them. If you want to see what you're getting into before you get into it, come to a repair party. See what we're working on. See what it takes, what kind of tools you're going to need, because there's a lot of money involved in tools if you're going to work on games yourself. There's a lot of time involved. And then just do your online research. If you're wanting to buy a Gottlieb machine, understand that a Gottlieb pinball machine, I should say, you're going to have to buy a manual. If you're wanting a Bally, a Williams, or almost anything else, you can find the manual online in an electronic format. So there's little caveats, little things to learn about that. So again, and if you're buying from a collector, you'll normally have manuals. You'll have schematics, as opposed to somebody whose father died and it's been in the basement for 40 years and he doesn't have a clue what he has. So.
Or you can just talk to Marco Farrell.
Yes, or you could talk to Marco Farrell, but get one of our phone numbers because you're going to have to call somebody to fix it.
When it comes to eBay, I've bought a number of machines off eBay, but there's a few things you have to think about when you're trying to figure out what the bidding price is. Obviously, when it comes to eBay, don't get into a bidding war with somebody. Set what your price is you're willing to pay for it, and don't go over that price. So if it goes over the price, you weren't willing to buy it anyway at that price. Second thing is that for shipping, It typically costs about $200 to $300 to ship a pinball or a video.
It's up to 5.
Shipping's gone up huge.
500.
I pay $500 to ship games regularly.
You can get 2 for 5.
Yeah, they'll do a 2 for 1 deal.
The pallet size.
But you pay it for a pallet no matter what.
Okay, well, breaking news.
You haven't shipped in a while.
Screw eBay. The last time I had one shipped, it was $300. But, well, it apparently, yeah, fuel costs. The thing is it's just like anything else. Is you have to subtract the shipping price for the machine from what you're willing to spend, because or your bidding price. And when you see pictures of a machine, this is the same for Craigslist or eBay. When you see pictures of a machine, what you see is what you're going to or what you see in the picture is what you're going to actually get. So but here's the thing: is if the seller shows you a picture and the screen isn't on, if it's not turned on, it doesn't work. Assume it doesn't work. Otherwise, they would show you a picture of it working. So that's one thing. Second thing is, if you ever hear the phrase "not tested," what that really means is tested and not working. Okay, so not tested. Yeah. The whole thing, it's just, it could be just a fuse. I don't know if you've bought a car off of eBay or Craigslist or something like that. I bought a car one time and some lady was, it's just an ignition problem. Well, no, it's a blown head gasket. So if you hear this nonsense, it's just a fuse. Okay, why didn't you replace the fuse before you sold it? So if the seller is making a claim that it's something simple, then the answer is it is not something simple, or else they would have done it. I mean, this is the same with like buying a car or anything else like that. So when you see the picture, if it isn't working in the picture, it doesn't work in real life, or you're going to have a problem with it. So just some common sense things.
The same way you work shipping into your cost, think about what you want this for. Like, I just got a space shuttle pinball. I'm going to restore this. You can buy one for $600 or $700. I just spent $500 on a brand new playfield. And then I'm going to do new plastics for $150. I'm going to do a new shuttle for $100, new ramp for $150. I'm going to build a $1,500, $700 game. It's going to be effectively new at the end. Just think about what you want to use it for. I could have got the $700 space shuttle, and it would have been playable. It would have been good enough for most cases. I just went a little nuts in this one. I got the cabinet for free. Free is never free. No. Then I'll go for any type of game. Doc here is, he likes to bring them back to pristine. Me, I like to see him as art in many ways. And one or two I'll bring up, but the majority of the stuff is like, oh, it's got to work. Big deal. Does it play? Am I having fun? That's the important part for me.
Who's next? Come on up.
No cue. I stepped in early, so I apologize if you already talked about this. Continuing on the space age joke, I have a question about routed machines. So someone that's new, getting into buying pins, what are the things you want to look at as far as what an operator may have for sale? Are there certain risks associated with that? Is it possible to get a deal with a machine that you might be able to put a few $100 in and have it play well, or in your experience?
It is possible to get a deal from an operator. That is possible. But one of the first things that you want to look at is you want to open it up and see that the wiring is not all hacked up. If you see wires going off in all different locations and they're not attached to anything, something's been jury-rigged in there. And it's usually not a God thing. It's been bypassed, exactly. Doesn't matter if it works well or not. There's been a couple of machines that were taken from this side of the water over to Spokane. They were bought from an operator, and they worked fine. They worked great. They got them over to Spokane. They ran for about 20, 30 days, and then they didn't run. Whereas I went over to Spokane on a road trip, and I fixed them. These were things that could have been fixed initially for $20, $30. And in this particular instance, it ended up running a couple $100 because of the hacks that had been done.
All right. So here's the thing. With the routed machines, the operators, they want their machines up and operational, bringing in money. That means when they show up, if they find the connector is burnt and they don't have a replacement connector, they'll just cut all the wires off and solder them directly to the header. This is not a Marco Farrell Space Age Amusement unique problem. This is all operators. Their machines are en route to make money. They are not keeping these machines around because they're going to be museum pieces someday. So when you're getting a machine from an operator, you can expect to find some hacks. We refer to these field modifications as hacks. That's what that term, field modification. I'm trying to be nice. That's what the term hack is referring to. These things are almost always reversible, but it does cost more money because to solder the wires directly to the pins on the circuit board, you're probably going to damage the board in the process. So now you're going to have to either repair or replace the board in addition to getting the new connector and pins and whatnot to replace stuff. The key, when you open a machine up and if you see wires that are going and there's a wire nut, like a wire was cut for no apparent reason, that's something to question. Why was this wire, this 12 inches of length of wire, suddenly cut at 4 inches in? Sometimes it tears. Sometimes there's a problem. Something got caught. But I see a lot of things, even in some of these machines I've been opening up over the last day and a half, working on them, that I don't know why these wires were cut the way they were. If it looks like it was a quick fix to get the thing back up and running, it makes sense. But sometimes mods just look completely bizarre, and question it. Question why it's there. Ask the operator, hey, why did you do this? Why did you repair it this way? If he's got a legitimate excuse, look, I wanted to keep it up and that was the quick route, it makes sense. Just understand it's going to cost more money to repair that, to replace that. Outside of that, I don't know. I mean, operators are operators. I've dealt with a lot of operators on both coasts, and they all ask really high numbers, but they all go in expecting you to negotiate. So most of the time, the operators will come down on the prices that they're asking. Whereas a lot of time, what Matt was saying, if you have cash in hand, they come down. You don't necessarily have that kind of negotiating room with collectors. Normally collectors know what they have in a machine, know what they want out of the machine, know what the market is of what that machine sells at locally. So, it's all dependent on who you're dealing with as to what kind of wiggle room you have on price, so when it comes to deals and things like that. Anything else, Matt?
Yeah, when you take a look at a game for the first time, don't ever, unless the person you're buying it from has shown it to you as working, don't ever plug a game in and try it out when you get home if it hasn't been plugged in before. Always open up the machine. Doesn't matter whether it's pinball or video or whatever. Always open up the machine and take a really hard look at it and see the condition of the wiring, see if it's got a ground plug, that kind of stuff before you plug it in. I had one time I'd bought a Tempest that come from, it was Western Texas, where you get some extremes in temperature, and I literally took one of the boards out of the monitor, I turned it upside down, and parts fell out of the board because there were broken solder connections. If I'd plugged that thing in, it probably would have been a nice little fireball, I imagine. So don't ever plug a machine in. Just try it out as soon as you get it. Always look at it. And when you're looking at the wire, manufacturers didn't use wire nuts. They didn't use crimp-on connectors or automotive fuses or anything like that. So if you see stuff like that, it's obviously been modified by someone who didn't have the right tools or the right parts in their possession. So just give it a nice look over when you get the machine home.
To go on that, part of what you're looking for is money. It's real common to find a quarter or three stuck somewhere in the bottom. It just missed the coin route and ended up floating around. And the operator's probably going to have gotten any money they could see out, but when you ship it, that coin that was wedged up against here worked loose, and it could be sitting on the fuse block. check before you turn it on. Every time you move a machine, you should probably take a look, open it up, anything, oh, that screw fell out of the control panel. Okay, let me pick it up, put it back, everything's great. It saves you headaches. And once in a while you get lucky. I found 75.50 in a game once. For a $200 game, it wasn't bad.
To expand upon what David was saying about coins floating around, back in the 80s, one of the largest problems with video games and pinball machines were coins. Jams in the coin door were not the problem. The problem was that they couldn't empty the coin buckets fast enough, and the spillover would actually arc the fuses because they fall into the bottom of the machine where the power supply is at, and it would burn up the power supply because they literally could not empty that coin bucket fast enough. True story.
I used to do route service for a theater chain, and they got a new game in called Silent Scope, and we used to check them for money every week. And we'd come in and see a layer of quarters under the machine because the box was full and they were pouring out and running down onto the floor. A hot game, you know, it started with Space Invaders. You know, they ran out of yen in Japan because they were all going in the machines. You know, a good game will still make money. There just aren't that many of those anymore.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Who else has got something for us?
I think I'm in the second chapter from the guy that was asking about buying his first pin. I bought one on eBay, and I paid a little bit more because I wanted it to work.
Certainly.
And it worked great. It's a 4-player Royal Flush.
Okay.
And I like EM, and I like to tinker with things. So I bought pinball maintenance, Yanks pinball maintenance. And so I'm trying to teach myself how to do this stuff. And I guess one thing I would like to have known before I bought it was where I could meet people to learn to fix them. Richard, thanks for the email. I just joined SMAC yesterday, and that's where I heard about the repair parties. And I'm happy to pay somebody to fix it. I'd just love to look over their shoulder while they do it. So where can I find people to do that?
Well, let me start to field that one. Okay, repair parties started about 4 years ago, and it started because of this show. In the video community, we had a lot of games that seemed to be kind of iffy, and yeah, they're games. But we wanted to make sure that everything stayed up during the show as best as possible. And the theory behind the repair party is if you come over, at that time, they were only held at my house. If you come over to my house and you bring your parts with you, I will teach you how to put it in there. I will not do it for you. And if you don't bring the right parts and I have them, I will loan them to you as long as you replace them. And after that first show, with the success of how everything stayed up, everybody kind of went, well, hey, this is kind of a good idea. How about, hey, can I host it at my house? Sure, go right ahead. Take it off my plate. I don't mind. Well, will you still come? Well, yeah, sure, I'll come. And, hey, Richard will come. And that's kind of the way it works. We travel around to everybody else's house, mostly once a month for repair parties. And it's really grown and shared the experience and knowledge. Everybody has a specialty. One of Richard's specialties is K7000 monitors.
Got a couple for you.
Yeah, I'm throwing you under the bus there, brother. We have another guy that specializes in anything that's black and white, and there are tons of black and white videos out there. Space Invaders is actually black and white. There's no green in it. It's a gel. Asteroids Deluxe, and the list goes on.
So, looking over somebody's shoulder, if you call a mechanic and he comes out to work on your car, he's going to want a little more to teach you along the way because, well, that's what he does for a living. We do this for fun. On a sideline, some of us do it for extra money to pay for their stuff. So yeah, I'd be willing to show you, no problem. You know, Okert's been teaching me, and I've been doing this stuff for 15 years. But and I specialize in board repairs, pretty much any kind. But I've also got huge amounts of equipment, so I'm not going to be able to teach you to diagnose that data buffer is bad, because you're not going to have the $1,000 piece of equipment that's going to do that. And well, you might be able to teach me more about EM than I could teach you, because well, like I said, I've never done one. Others have that particular knack. If you call an operator and say, "Hey, could you come fix this?" He'll say, "Sure thing, $75 an hour. I'll be there in 2 hours." And he's gonna want you to go get a beer while he works on it. Not to badmouth operators. They are. I've dealt with a lot of them. They're in general good guys. They are there to make money, and they don't necessarily want to teach. If they wanted to teach, they'd be teachers. So yeah, you can find somebody, but tell them up front, when you come fix this, could you show me what you're doing? Because some guys will get nervous, you looking over their shoulder. Others are going to be, yeah, okay, fine. You know, just be upfront with what you want.
Another big difference. Another big difference here is I don't do this to make my rent. I don't do this to pay for my daughter's braces. I do it because I enjoy it, and it puts money into my, hey, I got to buy another machine pool, and that way I don't take money out of my rent money to buy another machine. Got a second part to it?
I can't remember.
Oh, shouldn't have
So
cut
it was
you off.
so join the club, get to know the community, learn, and then give it back. That's what all you guys are doing.
That is it. Yes.
And SMAC does pinball. I think Richard's email was we do a lot of video, we do a lot of arcade, but we do a little bit of pinball. But you guys do repair parties for pinball and arcade games?
Yes.
Bring what you've got. If you've got an EM, bring it. You got an EM, you got a problem with it, as long as you're comfortable in transporting it yourself, great. Bring it, but verify that the person you're going to be bringing it to, you know, there's a couple of guys have a little bit smaller place, some of us have bigger place. And let people know what you're going to bring. And
Or host the party, have the hot dogs,
or
bring the food.
One problem with hosting a party, one problem with that is if I host at my place, I've got a big stash of parts. Okert's got a big stash of parts. A couple of the other guys, they've got a big collection, but not a lot of parts. So you got to bring, and I really hate it. It's like, God, if I hosted this one at my place, I could know that bin right. Okay, there's the part I need. It's like, no, I got to drive home to get it, or I'll just fix it later. I'd love to be inside a working EM to watch the mechanics a bit. I'd like to learn that. There's a couple of EMs that I'd be interested in. I've got a particular bent to the pins I like to collect. So a little bit of knowledge goes a long way. So, and we all like to learn. Well, other than Seth. And for Seth, it's all pins are evil, so.
That's right.
But I won't work on my car. Seth, when are you going to fix my van? Yeah, I could work on my car, or I could do the things I like to work on.
What else do we have? Anything? Anything at all?
Who doesn't own a game now? Did you plan to within the next 6 months?
Ah, another one over there.
Okay.
Are we thinking pinball or video? Okay.
It starts
Well.
with one.
What you said both. That means you both have something in mind. What are your thoughts?
Like a couple of you, I've actually been blessed with a spouse who bought the first game. So she bought an EM pinball, actually a game show, Bally, because I like the classic Bally's.
Mm-hmm.
That's more my bent. So we're looking at that. What we're looking at is to actually expand it out and build a game room. We just relocated in the Northwest from the South, where we had outdoor living space. We still have outdoor here, but not quite as much or as often.
Nice.
So we've decided to turn the downstairs into a rec room. So we came up from Portland today to get a feel for the community and what needs to be done.
Now, are you aware that you have a great community down there in Portland, which is our sister group, the
That's one reason I came up
Portland
to find
Arcade
out.
Collectors?
Good. I'll talk to you guys to make sure I know how to reach them.
Okay.
What we're looking at is we want to get arcade and pin. I'm the pinball freak, and yeah.
Oddly, in most cases, that's actually backwards. Usually, it's the other way around.
Misspent childhood.
Yeah.
So we have a couple questions we wanted to ask. One was we were looking at some of the games that have been remanufactured within the communities for home use that are the multi games in a single cabinet. Don't know much about it. It seems like something too good to be true.
Okay, and we'll hold on to that one for a second. Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Oh, we'll let everybody answer that one. One of the most knowledgeable on that one's going to be Richard down there at the end, scowling away because he's made many of them. Multis?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were on that. You're on that train.
So there's a couple of different types of multi. The multi-pin is, so I've got a massive collection of arcades. I'm not down on emulators for a lot of reason. But if you could buy a MISPAC, why are you getting an emulator to do it unless you have a one-bedroom apartment and have no room? That's one of the best things for multi. I'm going to build a multi-pin because there are a couple of pins I'm probably never going to be able to get my hands on. And I'd like to give a try. So for that, it's good. The Mame stuff to do the emulated arcades, I understand some people really like that. Some people think it's the ultimate evil. There's IP. There's a whole argument about what the legality, the actual legality of it. Some people say if you don't own the ROMs, you can't be running this game. Well, okay, yeah, fine. I want to see Gremlin come after me.
Now, I tend to take a very pragmatic approach to that. So if you only have room for one game, fine. It's probably okay to have the multi. But I have friends who have dedicated games and a multi. And the multi is for games they don't have. When they have a party and they have a bunch of people over, and this is people where it's a combination of people who are in the hobby and people who are not. So regardless of the grouping of people who are there, if you have dedicated games and a multi, the dedicated games get played all night, the multi gets a couple of games, and that's it. So regardless of what anybody says, it's more fun to play on the dedicated game, and that's just based on observation through people in and out of the hobby. So if from a pragmatic standpoint, I don't have a multi just because I don't really, anytime I've seen it, I don't see it providing much fun.
Are you familiar with muscle cars? Yes. What would you prefer? One that's going to run or one that's a purist? Multi-games generally run. A lot of the dedicated games give you issues because they're old school, whatnot. A multi-game, you can put a switcher in, very easy to maintain. If it ever goes out, you basically replace it for $15 on Bob Roberts. Something like a dedicated Donkey Kong, they get board issues occasionally. They do other things. Same concept. But if you're a purist, you notice that in a multi-game, the graphics are sometimes slightly different. For instance, the Star Wars out there, which has an ESB kit in it, you can tell that the vectors that are in the shape of the photon torpedoes or whatever the hell they call them are actually from the ESB and not from the actual Star Wars. But if that stuff doesn't bother you, then get a multi-game. They take up less room.
One thing we do, it's probably not talked a whole lot about in the community, is we do a lot of game swapping. And for example, the Stun Runner that's out there, I swapped with a friend of mine with a Moon Patrol. I had a Moon Patrol, it was working, and I just got tired of it. And the same for him with the Stun Runner. He wanted a Moon Patrol, I wanted a Stun Runner, so we swapped them. So we do an awful lot of that. And so on the occasions that I've wanted to, that I thought having a multi-game would be kind of nice, I've actually just decided to swap machines around. So we do a lot of that. I'm a little bit more of a purist, though. There's been cases where I've had a machine up for sale for a low price, and somebody would tell me on the phone that they intended to turn it into a Mame cabinet, and I've flat out refused to sell it. And I've had people get really mad at me because of it. But it would be like if you had a car in very, very good condition, and someone decided, well, I'm going to cut the springs, I'm going to change the engine out, and I'm going to put a hood on it that's not original. But the car, as it sits, it may not look all that pretty, but it's original. You know, you have to, you know, in your heart, would you sell that vehicle knowing that it was going to be, in essence, destroyed? So that's kind of the point of view I take. So rather than getting a multi-game, I'll swap machines around.
All right, let me see that. Okay, multi-games. Now, I'm a bit younger than most of the guys here. I grew up in a different era than these guys, and the games I collect are different than what they collect. And that's something that you got to think about within the collector groups. We've got guys like, there was a mention of a guy that's our black and white specialist. That is 90%, 95% of his games are black and whites. And then we got other guys that only buy games manufactured between January 1st, 1981 and March 18th, 1983 or whatever. They have weird ranges. And and then there's different people that get different things. My collection is wild. It's all over the place. When it comes to multis, the quality of multis, again, is wild and all over the place. The multis you see on Craigslist pop up where the guy's willing to sell it for $800, $1,200, and it's got 60 games on it or 48 games on it. That is on a board that was manufactured in China that is running a really old version of Mame. That was something that Matt mentioned. Mame is a multiple arcade machine emulator, I believe is what it stands for. It's basically a software. It's actually more like a bunch of software that's been designed to reproduce these games and try to make them play like they played in cabinets on a PC, on a home computer. So those 60-in-1 games, the 48-in-1s, those boards are cheap. You can buy a 60-in-1 board by itself for about $65 if you know where to go to find it. The emulation it's not crappy, but it's not perfect. That's the key. If you're one of these guys, if your goal is to set the world record on Donkey Kong, that board's not going to cut it. But if you're wanting a game for people to play when they come over, it does. And my experience is different than Brian's. I have a couple of machines that have multis. Those are the machines I see played all night long as opposed to my dedicateds. However, I don't have the popular dedicated machines. So, I mean, my dedicated machines are kind of bizarre, and people play them a couple times and are like, I don't know what I need to do. This makes no sense. So they go to the multis, which have the popular games. They've got Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Galaga. That's what they have. But if you're considering multis, the community I would say to look at to review for multi-video games is KLOV, Killer List of Video Games. That community, they talk about multis all the time. That community, a large portion of them care more about originality and not necessarily the original cab, but that the game plays like it originally played. Those people will talk, and they don't hold punches, they don't pull punches about the quality of the emulation, the reproduction on these different boards, and you can find what boards are good, high-quality reproductions of the other games. Understand a high-quality board is going to be a $400 board as opposed to that $60 board, and it will probably have 6 or 7 games instead of 60 games. But if that quality is of interest to you, that community has the information. That community will also, when that board comes out and that board's good, somebody else in that community will take up the mantle and create artwork that looks good on a machine that has characters from each of those games on it. Somebody else will come and he'll look at that artwork and he will build dedicated control panels that work will stick right on. So if you just give it a little bit of time with that community, honestly, you can build a game out of the emulated stuff for a lot of money. No, I mean, we're still, none of this is cheap, but when it comes to quality, the quality of emulated games really just depends on how much money you spend on it. Go ahead, Matt.
The one thing I will say about the emulated cabinets or emulated games is it allows you to test drive a lot of different games. Our memories of things change over the years. I've had a number of games that I thought that I remember playing as a kid that I thought would be really cool to have as an adult. And I went out, I found the cabinet, brought it home, got it working, and I go to play it, and in some cases it's like, why did I ever think this was cool? This game sucks. So, you know, our perceptions change over time. So a multi-game is a very good way of giving things a test drive and not going through the pain of driving somewhere, bringing home a cabinet, and just to play it and find that you didn't like it. The other, that's one nice thing about this show is the wide variety of pinballs and video games. Is this is a way of test driving games that you thought that you liked, and spend some time with it and really find out if you do like it before you actually buy it. And that's a nice thing about emulation is you can give everything a test drive.
Just to add to what Matt was saying about testing the games, another aspect of the repair parties I didn't bring up is normally the host cuts his games on. They're there to play. You can play his games. So if that host has a game you think you might want to play, you're interested in Quantum and you haven't had a chance to play one, well, if the host has one, and normally when a host hosts a repair party, he says, hey, this is my game list. This is what's currently working. Usually is what the list is. With some others to the bottom. I think these can be fixed, but this is what's working. Yeah, well, that's my list. Mine and Dave's list gets sent to us in addition. But, you know, so that's another way to get a hold of games. We also have a lot of video and pinball arcades that have been popping up in the area. Dorky's down in Tacoma. I'm sure you can find contact information over at the booth. Shorty's, if you're into pinball machines, the Seattle Pinball Museum. Ground Control down in Portland, if you're and Envision, and I don't know, there's like Ground Control's exploded. There's like 6 arcades have opened down there recently. There's Addaball up here. There's a lot of places to play games, and there's online resources to find those places. And some of the online databases are kept up monthly. So, go ahead, Brian.
Okay, thanks. And one quick thing to add to what I've heard a lot of us have kind of alluded to is if you like a game, enjoy it, buy it, have fun with it. One of my favorite games is one that nobody wanted. I paid $50 for this cabinet. For me, it's the nostalgia of it, and I love that game. So it's not, you don't have to work. It's Space Fever. Yeah. So, anyways, it doesn't have to be a guilty pleasure. If you like it, it's your game. Have fun with it. For me, it's because that was the first arcade I ever played. So, if you like the game and it's fun, get that one. Regardless, if you like, that's why, like you're saying, if you like the multis, get it. But so whatever you're happy with and whatever you have fun with, buy it. Don't be ashamed of it. Have fun. Get something else. Sometimes I'll be like, yeah, I love that game, even though everybody hates it. It's fun.
One more thing real quick to add to that. There are 2 types of video games. You have raster and you have vector. If you are looking for a vector game, there is no way that a raster monitor is going to produce those graphics no matter what you do to it. So if you're looking for a Star Wars, an Asteroids or something, buy it.
Produce it, just not with high fidelity. Yeah, the controls and the image. Well, I've got a specialization in Laserdisc player games. It's my Dragon's Lair, my Space Ace, my Dragon's Lair 2 out here. There's no real good way to emulate them other than doing these screen grab frame by frame by frame, and then it just isn't quite the same. A vector, as Seth said, you're going to turn what used to be a nice smooth line into jaggies. But if you want to play Quantum and you don't want to go for one of the Grail hunts, because it's considered to be one of those, and you just want to play it, okay, play it, have fun with it. You know, I collect a lot of these games as art pieces. It's like, I don't like Sinistar. I've got a Sinistar cockpit because it's gorgeous. It's just so unusual. And so yeah, well, yeah. So, you know, for me, a lot of it is the art piece. if you were to convert one of these, okay, yeah, it's kind of a blue box. If you're going to convert the latest version of Street Fighter to an emulated game, joy. I don't care because it's an ugly box. If you're going to convert a Quantum to a Street Fighter, I'm going to break your legs, which I've seen.
Understand that other people would be flip-flopped on that.
Yeah. Quantum, who gives a shit about that thing? I want to play Street Fighter.
We're going to have to wrap up and close out, but in the end, the reality is any game is only worth what you're willing to pay for it. A lot of times I go out and look at games and I think, well, God, this is really a dog, and they only want $50 for it. But well, it doesn't work. I could break all these parts down and I could sell it for $600-700 and throw the cabinet away. Might not necessarily be the right way to think about it, but you know, they're what are you going to do? But then I have the parts that you need when your baby is down, and my parts are sitting on the shelf. Oh, here you go. And it didn't cost you $600.
Actually, one last bit. Yeah. Be aware, monitors are dead. They're not making tubes anymore. CRTs don't exist. So everything is going to become different. You can replace a monitor with an LCD. It doesn't look the same. It's just like going from vector to raster, which were both tubes. Raster to LCD just doesn't look right. Get used to it though, because all the tubes are going to die eventually.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell. We want to thank everybody for coming out, and game on.